Hello and welcome everyone. This is Phoenix with your Patriot Health Report for the weekend of June 22nd, 2024. All the health facts you need to know for the Patriot on the go. And of course, as usual, I'm joined by Bob Gilpatrick of Boomers Forever Young. And this week, Bob is going to be discussing with us and giving us information on dementia. Dementia and, believe it or not, weight loss. Yes, there have been some discoveries in both of these areas. I know they don't sound like they go together, but, well, I guess they do today, so now they do. Forever they shall. Anyway, Bob, how's it going down in Florida, and how are things going with your company? And, before we get into the topic, do you have any updates or important information you want to share with us about what's going on there at Boomers?
Yes, I do have a couple updates. So this is the weekend of the 22nd of June, 2024. And our flagship product called Boomer Boost, we're doing our annual sale where it's at 30% off. And that's going to go on until the 26th. So if people are listening, before the 26th, this is a really great opportunity. This is the lowest price of the year for that product. So if you're already using it, you want to stock up, it's a good time. If you haven't yet, this is a great time to get it and try it at that price. So that's a product with 68 different nutrients in it that's designed to be comprehensive nutrition, and it helps tremendously with things like circulation that we're going to talk about today in its relationship to dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The second thing is, Phoenix, our product Myatrol, which lots of people have either already used, are currently using it, or are on a waiting list to get it when the next shipment comes in. We heard yesterday that next shipment is going to be in the middle of July. So this month coming, it looks like everybody that wants to get Myatrol is going to be able to get it. And Myatrol is a brand new invention. We'll talk about it today during the program itself. And it's a new invention that helps people to gain muscle weight at any age. So a person, even 100 years old, can begin to regain muscle as if they were very young again. We've already had quite a few hundred people been using it for a few months now, and lots of testimonials how well it's working. I think the oldest person that sent us a testimonial was 91, but we have younger people using it as well, bodybuilders, etc. And so that's good news, Phoenix. This is a brand new product, and it takes a while to make because it's all natural and has to be put together very carefully, and then you have to have just the right plant that will actually put it into the gel caps for you and take care of it for us. But it's working out. We're the distributor for it. The inventor, Eric Kurtz, selected Boomers Forever Young to be his distributor for this product. And so if people want to get it, or for themselves or a friend, you can call our 800 number and go on to the waiting list, and we'll make sure to get you some in July.
Very good. I know that's a lot of positive information for some people because of the situation where you did run out. So that's fantastic news, Bob, and that's really cool. To be hosting a brand new product like that and be chosen is really a big deal. Very cool. And I'm so glad to hear about the positive aspects from everybody. Yeah, that's majority, and that's very good. And that's not really that common of a thing to have that many positive you know, reports from something new. So that's very good. Very good.
Yeah, I think we only had two people that tried it that couldn't take it. One person um, said that he got a headache from it. Not surprising. It does help to increase your circulation, and he probably ended up with a little bit too much blood in his brain. Had I been able to talk to him sooner before he returned it, I would have advised him to maybe put a cold compress on his forehead, which would have gotten rid of that cluster headache, and that eventually his body would adapt to it and would no longer get headaches. Some people get headaches from taking any type of product that increases circulation. And what that means is that it's really working, and that you should just use a cold compress. And it usually, after 3 or 4 days of doing that, your brain gets used to that much extra blood, which is a really good thing. And it's it's worth the effort to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, increased blood flow to the brain is usually a good thing. We could use more of that in the United States, I have to tell you, Bob. Anyway.
Yes, we could. And we'll talk about that today, and maybe just the right people will be listening.
Maybe, but I doubt it. Anyway, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
All righty. Yeah, let's keep that on topic here, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because we're talking about dementia and mental decline, we're not talking about any specific well-known public figure. Okay? Just
That's
to
true.
make that clear. Okay? Full disclosure from Bob and Phoenix. Anyway, all right. Well, that's all really good news. Anything else you want to share with us? News updates or anything else about the company?
No, I don't think so. Still, this is our 13th year in business, and it's still going strong. We're getting new customers all the time that are hearing about us and are successfully using our products to help with all different kinds of things. We still have people coming by the office to visit. We just had a visit from one of our customers who's a physical medicine doctor. He actually came to visit twice. He's a physiatrist, and he's a competitive ocean swimmer. And a few years ago, he started using our Gladiator barley, and he improved significantly his swimming times. And then it kind of plateaued after a couple of years, and he started taking Myotrol. Now it would be about 2 months ago, and I met him after it was 6 weeks he was using it. And that put him up into a new category where he improved his times an additional 10% in the 6 weeks of using Myotrol.
Wow.
And it was really great to see him come and visit. People can actually see a picture of him in a testimonial. It's right on the front page of our website. If you scroll down, you'll see his name is Gregory Gerber, and his name is right there on that testimonial.
Very cool. Wow.
He's right next to the ex-professional basketball player. His name was Dee Brown, and Dee Brown was famous for being the first ever point guard to win the slam dunk competition. So a point guard is usually the shortest man on the court, a basketball court, and not known for their prowess in dunking the ball. But Dee could jump so high that even at only 6'2", he won the slam dunk competition back in, I think it was 1991. And he was the point guard for the Boston Celtics. But Dee, as he retired, like many athletes that you see on TV that were in really great shape when they were playing, you'll now see them as commentators, and a lot of them have gained a lot of weight, in some cases 100 pounds, because they're not burning 10,000 calories a day anymore, but they didn't modify their consumption habits very well. Dee was one of those people, and he decided he wanted to get really well nourished, and he started using our total health system with the barley and Boomer Boost and the like. And he sent us before and after pictures, one when he first started, and it was his ID from the Los Angeles Clippers. He was the general manager of their D-League team, and he sent us his ID, and then the next year when he got his ID done again, he sent us the next ID, and it looked like half a person. It looked like he was half the size that he was when he started on the Boomer products.
Excellent.
And that was a few years ago, Phoenix, and he's still using our products to this day. And you can see the picture of him next to Greg Gerber on that site as well.
You know, interesting thing. Listeners may not know, but whenever he was winning the slam dunk competition, all of his efforts and successes in basketball, he actually had a certain way to protect his eyes when he would go up towards the goal. And it was a move that he did that people are familiar with. You may be or may not. It was called dapping. And it's like where your arms out one way, cover your face on the other way, and people do it. It became like a meme on the internet, dapping. And so if you ever have done it yourself or did it or knew other people who did dapping, that's where it came from. That's it. The fellow that Bob's just now talking about.
Yeah, he did it as a trick. So he wanted to show that he could run down the court and dunk the ball without looking. And so he would cover his face with his left arm. He would put the crook of his arm over his eyes, and he could run down the court and dunk the ball with the other hand. And so that's where it came from. But you see kids like in a Little League game, they might get a hit and they're running around the bases. They've made this great hit, and they'll do that move. They'll cover their eyes.
Yeah, it's basically a victory move, like score.
It was originally a trick shot.
Yeah,
but now it became a celebration.
Yeah, exactly. Well, very cool. All righty, that's all really good stuff, Bob. Thank you very much. Now, question for you: how in the heck do the two items of dementia and weight loss? How do these mesh, and how is this relevant to what you're going to teach us today?
Yeah, so there's human beings have a hormone in their system that's called irisin, and it's spelled irisin, and it's a hormone that's released in your body as a result of exercise or physical activity. And it turns out that it's really important as part of muscle building, and it's also really important in regard to the health of your brain. And a new study came out this month. A study was released about what they're referring to as a potential biomarker for Alzheimer's disease. And somebody got the idea that if in the cerebral spinal fluid, which kind of surrounds your brain and your spinal cord and actually fills ventricles also in your brain that creates compression, that if someone was getting low levels of this hormone in their cerebral spinal fluid, it might be related to Alzheimer's disease. So they did a study with, I think it was 83 people, where they actually took blood and cerebral spinal fluid through a tap of people with varying levels of different kinds of dementia. And what they found was that the people that seemed to have Alzheimer's disease had very low levels of irisin in their cerebral spinal fluid. And they're not really, they know that is correlated with the increase in the proteins that are associated with the plaques and tangles in your brain. And so that at the end of the article, they say that the doctor that did the study with his colleagues are saying that, of course, they always say the same thing: they need to do further investigation, but this is providing interesting perspectives towards the role of irisin in the possible modulation of Alzheimer's disease. And it can be a guide in targeting new medications for Alzheimer's disease. So there's a couple of things about this. We know also that the more you exercise, the more irisin you're going to have. We also know that irisin is coded for in your DNA. Your body makes irisin when the part of your DNA that contains that code is unwrapped and exposed so it can be copied and then synthesized. The code gets synthesized into irisin. And we also know that as people get older, their DNA tends to get damaged and it tends to express less frequently. And so here's a case where Alzheimer's disease is normally associated with older people. The older you get, the more likely you are to have it. And it makes sense that that's the case because we know the older you get, the less genetic expression that you have. And so rather the Phoenix than the development of a drug, the reason I know about this is Eric Kurtz sent me the articles about it. And Eric Kurtz is the inventor of Myotrol. And he knew from his research prior to creating Myotrol that it was going to increase irisin. Irisin is part of muscular development, and the genes for synthesizing muscle and making irisin are all in the same neighborhood in the DNA. And so when you stimulate a section of DNA with polyphenols, it tends to express numerous things simultaneously. And so Eric sent me this article saying, hey, check this out. We knew that irisin was increasing with people taking Myotrol. And now this study comes out saying that low levels of irisin are possible cause of Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, wow.
So there's that aspect to the studies that we've been looking at. But we also know, Phoenix, that something is going on with people that are taking weight loss drugs, meaning the new ones that are all the rage that people are getting, mostly injections, and they have this active ingredient, semaglutide, and they go, under various brand names. And many millions of people around the world are using these injections, which were originally designed to help people with diabetes control their blood sugar. But it turns out that when they started giving the people with diabetes these shots, they were all of a sudden starting to lose weight, which in the case of a person with diabetes is really good because a big part of having diabetes is because you're overweight. So as people started to lose weight, they got better control of their blood sugar, which we know reduces their inflammation, which is a really, really good thing for people with diabetes. And however, of course, there are some side effects to these medications, as there are with almost all medications, some types of side effects. And one of the side effects was that they noticed that people were losing fat while they were losing weight, but they were also losing muscle. And now that they've had these drugs for long enough, they've been able to do studies that are showing that when people have finished losing the amount of weight they want to lose, 20 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, that a portion of it was muscle, and they are not gaining that muscle back after they have lost all the fat they need to lose. And even in some cases, people stop taking the drug and they'll gain some weight, but it's not muscle weight. They're gaining back fat, and the muscle loss appears to be permanent. Right?
Oh, now that
Well,
is not good. You know,
right.
I made a comment to Bob pre-interview, like a little bit of sarcasm. I said, "Gee, Bob, I cannot believe that the pharmaceutical companies put something out that is, making them tons and tons of money, and it turns out to be very detrimental later to." To the people who are taking it. This has happened before. I talk about on the Patriot Intel report, I use the matrix of information, and, a great basis of that is historical replication. And again, so here we are again. We could literally click off maybe dozens, who knows how many, pharmaceuticals that have come out and been highly touted, very profitable, that later you start seeing commercials. If you were harmed by this medication, call our law firm. I mean, okay, so I'm just going to stop right there. I don't want to get this video tagged or anything, but anyway, this does not surprise me. Okay, please continue.
Yeah. So this is something where we are working. We're working on this, Phoenix, with people that have lost a lot of muscle weight, to help them to regain it, and also whether it's from a weight loss drug or some other reason. We had a massive crisis with this starting back in 2020, Phoenix, when lots of people were being put on respirators, right? Like the ventilator at the hospital, to give them a little boost for their breathing, to help them breathe a little bit, right? And it turns out that when someone is on these artificial breathing apparatus machines, they tend to lose muscle weight very rapidly, to the rate of between 1 and 2 pounds per day. And they don't know why that these machines are causing that to happen, but nonetheless it is. We had a customer, Phoenix, that ended up being on one of these machines for almost 2 months, and he was in the hospital for
Wait
a
a minute.
long
Is
time.
this the person I know also?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Okay.
no.
Please continue.
And by the time he got out of the hospital, he'd lost half of his body weight and almost all of his muscle. I'm happy to say that he's doing much, much better now, and has gained a lot of his muscle weight back. And we're hopeful that over time he'll gain all of it back, because not only does he use the Gladiator barley, which gave him a great boost in his muscle gain, but now he's also using Myotrol. And so what we're hoping to find is that he gets all of his strength back, over the remainder of this year. But this is something that happened to millions of people, where they're on breathing apparatus and lost tons and tons of muscle weight. We know from research studies that never, or almost never, do those people gain back all their muscle weight. The average person gains back about 80% of the muscle weight that they lost. A few people gain back 85% of the muscle weight they lost, and almost no one gains back more than 85%. So to lose 15% of your muscle in a best case scenario, that's really not good for you at all. When you lose muscle weight, whether it's from an intervention or it's from old age, you're getting crumbly at that point. Your bones are going to get weaker. Your brain is not going to work as well. And we now kind of know why with this study on irisin in people with Alzheimer's disease. And so now more than ever, we have a lot of people that need access to gladiator barley and to Myotrol. So we're working to make that happen, Phoenix. And anyone who's listening to the program that knows someone who has lost a lot of muscle weight, whether from age or from an intervention, have them get in touch with us. Between the combination of gladiator barley and Myotrol, they'll definitely see a great deal of success. So some people using Myotrol and gladiator barley have already had really, really great successes. Personally, for me, when I started taking gladiator barley, I had a really big advancement right at the beginning, 13 years ago. Phoenix, I've told you the story about helping a friend move and being able to walk up and down stairs carrying heavy things all day long.
Oh yeah, you've told me the story. He won't tell it right now, but it was pretty amazing. There were a bunch of other people there. They went and did something. They came back. Bob had done so much work that they were like they couldn't believe it. So
yeah, I unloaded 4 pickup truck loads of stuff while they had gone back to the house to get the U-Haul trailer. And when they got back, I had moved all 4 pickup truck loads up to the 3rd story walk up.
Yeah, they were stunned because
I couldn't believe it myself. I was like, "Wow, this barley is something."
Yeah, and if memory serves me correct, I mean, you weren't the youngest guy there, were you?
Oh no, not even close. No.
Anyway, yeah,
and I was probably the oldest. And
yeah,
so
I didn't want to say it. I knew it. I remember the story.
I probably was. But what happened? Then 10 years later, I had similar experience with Myotrol. I used myself as a test subject. I was using Myotrol before it became commercially available. I was in the beta test, and I kept track of, I specifically kept track of my weightlifting, where I was at that time going to the gym, and then tracked it over the course of 2 months. And I doubled my strength in 2 months' time using Myotrol.
I remember Bob used to keep me filled in on that when he was doing the thing. Told me all about Myotrol. I mean, even before the public knew. And he was like teasing me with it. It was, oh yeah, so here I have this product and I'm doing this and that, and no, you can't have any yet. I mean, he wouldn't say that, but it was like it felt like that to me. I'm like, oh, I want some of that. Anyway, I'm like, how's it going, Bob? Oh, really good. Too bad it's not for you. Yeah, but now we can't get it. Anyway, just want to throw
so how it relates, your question was, what's the relation between Alzheimer's and weight loss? And the relation is Myotrol and irisin. So irisin and increases in irisin help people with retaining muscle, and they help people retain their cognitive function as well. And this whole issue of exercise and Alzheimer's disease has really taken center stage now with the release of a book by a very famous doctor who specializes in Alzheimer's disease. Her name is Dr. Heather Sandison, Sandison. And she wrote a book called Reversing Alzheimer's. And this is a very, very interesting lady. She is out in California, and she has a clinic that people can come to or bring their loved ones to for assistance with dementia, including Alzheimer's. And she has a whole program that's designed to help people be able to stay at home and not have to go live in a memory care center, a nursing home, or the like. And it's very extensive intervention strategy that she has. It's multifaceted. But one of the main things that she talks about, which is being picked up on the major news wires is her prescription of exercise for people with Alzheimer's and how they're actually getting better. And she goes into a whole list of the different things that happen when people begin to exercise. And we'll talk about saying that exercise, number one, increases your blood flow. And we know from studies at Cornell University that when you increase your blood flow, and if you're a person that has dementia and you increase the blood flow to your brain, you get significant improvements in your disease. Right? Now, the studies were not done with exercise. They were done using circulation mats that are producing pulsed electromagnetic fields. And that was the study that they did. But also exercise is a beneficial stressor. So you would consider exercising your muscles and getting stronger and gaining more muscle weight to be a beneficial thing, but you have to create stress in order to do that. And it turns out that exercise also is a beneficial stressor for your brain, and your brain improves from that stress. Right? And it also, when you're exercising, you're releasing feel-good hormones. You're releasing serotonin and oxytocin, and these are making you feel better, which reduces cortisol levels. Okay, because when people have dementia, it's very stressful and it's very depressing, and so they tend to have high cortisol levels, which creates more inflammation, and that very inflammation is the precursor to many forms of dementia. So it's really great when people can exercise, feel better, lower cholesterol, and lower their inflammation.
Fantastic.
So
One question I have, Bob. Bob, have you ever experienced? I'm thinking you have because I know you're an athlete and have been all your life. What's called runner's high. I used to do long distance running, quite a bit of it, different things, and I used to experience that. I would actually feel that letdown, and it's really a real thing. Runner's high. You get to the point like, I don't know. You get more relaxed. You feel good. It's kind of like you go into an automatic zone, and you can really, when you're in that state with those hormones releasing, perform some amazing physical tasks.
yeah, absolutely, especially in a competition that involves other people, numerous other people, like a basketball game, and when there's a crowd of people watching, um, very pronounced. You get into a flow state. So you might be running for 15, 20 minutes playing the game, and all of a sudden now everything starts to click, where without even thinking, you're attempting types of shots and making certain types of shots that you never had seen anybody else make before. You had never thought of trying on your own before, but it just kind of starts to flow.
Everybody, while Bob's talking about, I know you've seen this. You may have seen it in person. You may have done it, but Bob's talking about the classic thing, like even like a high school basketball game, that 1 second before the buzzer, somebody, sometimes like basically not a big player on the team, will attempt a crazy shot all the way from the end and swish. It's in, and they win the game. That's the zone Bob's talking about. You attempt to do things, and it just flows. I know you've seen that, and you may have done it yourself. Bob, you've probably done it. Because I know you're a big basketball guy. You probably did that sometime.
Yeah, certainly. And my niece, Laura Wild, is a flow coach. She teaches professional athletes how to access that flow state. And she puts on webinars about it and other things, and she's taught it, with professional basketball teams. NBA teams have used her to teach this technology. It's a quantum technology state that she teaches, and it's very effective. And that's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about with people that are stressed and inactive and are getting Alzheimer's disease as a result. Those good beneficial hormones that can create these beautiful states are really quite amazing. And the other thing that it does for you is it increases the pumping of your cerebral spinal fluid. And cerebral spinal fluid is filling ventricles in your brain with cerebral spinal fluid. And in some cases, it's creating pressure in a good way. So the outside of your pineal gland is coated with these really beautiful calcite crystals, and they are piezoelectric, meaning under pressure, those crystals produce electricity. And that's part of the purpose of your cerebral spinal fluid expanding and contracting. So there's a technology, therapeutic technique, I should say. It's called craniosacral therapy, and the therapist can hold their hands on either side of the patient's head and can actually feel the person's skull expanding and contracting very, very gently, and about every 7 seconds. This is the pulse of the cerebral spinal fluid. The fluid is filling and then emptying. And there's a technique called still point, where the therapist will use their hands and gently push in as the person's skull is contracting. And with their intention, intend to hold it in and not let it expand back out. And it takes anywhere between a minute and maybe 5 minutes. And what will happen is the patient's cerebral spinal pulse will stop. It goes into a rest. And this is a good thing. In fact, the discoverer of this pulse and the technique for arresting it, Dr. Upledger, was a very perceptive and very detail-oriented osteopath who discovered this pulse one day when he was assisting in a spinal surgery. And his job was to hold the spinal cord perfectly still.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
We're losing some volume on you. Is your volume down or?
No, it should be just the same.
Okay, now that's much better. I don't know what the difference was, but please continue. We were starting to lose you there. You're fading on the audio. But we could hear you.
Okay.
So please continue.
Yeah, sure. So he was assisting in this surgery, and his job was to hold the spinal cord still while another surgeon operated. And he discovered that he couldn't hold it perfectly still because it seemed to be growing and getting smaller, expanding and contracting. And that was the original discovery of the pulse of the cerebral spinal fluid. And he then spent a good part of his life creating therapies around this discovery. And when a person is in this still point that's induced by the therapist, your body goes into a healing mode. And Dr. Upledger's first book was called Your Inner Physician and You. And it was about a lot of things, but particularly he talked about still point. And so by holding the cerebral spinal fluid in and not allowing it to drain back out, and some people can be in still point for a long time, 20 minutes, a half an hour, even more, and you create a large volume of piezoelectricity from your pineal gland that benefits your whole brain. And so the whole issue of cerebral spinal fluid is now starting to take center stage again after this discovery about the levels of irisin and as it relates to Alzheimer's disease.
Very cool. Now, and again, arisen, like you were telling us, the increased amount of arisen that comes from Myotrol, has that been like have you documented that, and is it how significant of an increase is it?
That part I don't know. I'll have to check in with Eric about that. It was part of the basic research that he did when he was choosing which genes he wanted to activate using a combination of polyphenols.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the genes that they were going after for other reasons. The reason being its relation inside the muscle building process. And it wasn't until later, in fact, just recently, that he found out from these other researchers that irisin was related to Alzheimer's. So I'm sure there's going to be more studies done as time goes by. I talked to Eric about studying various aspects of myotrol with the help of third-party researchers from academic research facilities, and he's very interested in doing that. We have a research facility here in Tampa that's capable of doing that type of thing. So as time goes by and we get a bunch of people started using Myotrol, we'll be doing that type of research.
Oh, very cool. I can't wait to see that. That could lead to something really huge with Myotrol.
Yep.
Anyway, that beside, let's continue on.
Yeah. So it turns out also, the woman Heather Sanderson that wrote this book about reversing Alzheimer's was talking about the benefits of exercise, and she talked about how it improves your sleep, which had been known for a long time to help people with dementia if they could get better sleep. And also, exercise helps to detoxify you, including your brain. The other thing this I found really interesting, Phoenix, was the cell signaling in your whole body, including your brain, is improved. And when you exercise, you produce a type of cytokine they call an exerkine. And exerkines are particular molecular compounds produced when you exercise, and they help cell signaling. So it helps your brain work better, sending signals from one cell to another, but it also has a neuroprotective effect on your brain.
Bob, are you there?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
You
So,
dropped off there. I didn't
yep,
know what happened.
still here. So, this, if people that are listening know someone with dementia, this book by by Dr. Sanderson would be really worthwhile getting. She has this great chart that she uses when she's helping people that have dementia. And Phoenix, she set up a residential care facility for people with dementia, and she has this home care intervention system as well. But she set up the first ever residential care facility for people that temporarily need supervision and help. But the whole goal is to have them improve enough in regard to their dementia that they no longer need constant supervision, and that instead they can, with living with a relative or a friend or a caregiver, can function well enough so they don't have to be under 24-hour supervision. And if you've ever seen people that have severe dementia, they do need 24-hour supervision. They'll do all kinds of things that are not under their control that can be very damaging to themselves and to other people. People with severe dementia can become very, very violent, physically violent and abusive, and especially if it's a large, strong man, it's very dangerous. And in nursing facilities, when you have that type of a situation, you don't have any choice but to medicate the person. And so they'll give very strong sedatives to people with Alzheimer's disease in order to keep everybody safe. And these are,
Yeah, everyone, if you're not familiar, that's called a chemical restraint.
yeah,
Bob
yeah.
knows what that is because,
And it's,
I've worked on emergency medical crews before and like authorization for a chemical restraint given. So, anyway, please go on.
yeah, yeah. So, and it's better than a physical restraint, which tends to make people even more agitated and violent. The chemical restraint will at least make things manageable. All right. One of the things that I did, Phoenix, was in order to try to use less of these chemical restraints, we purchased a chair, a special chair for a nursing home. It's called a Symmetron chair. And a Symmetron chair is these really well designed leather bound easy chairs that recline, and it's mounted on a motorized pedestal, and it moves in a partial circle and it gyrates. So it kind of moves up and around and down and around. And that gyrating motion is very, very soothing. And then also there's a full body music experience where there are speakers inside the chair. And then there's a separate volume control for a set of headphones that a person can use plugged into a music source. Back in the day, it was, an old-fashioned stereo stack. And that you would play harmonic resonance music, like hemisync music,
Mm-hmm.
through the chair and through the headphones while the person was in this gyrating chair. And lo and behold, it was successful in helping us to reduce these chemical restraints with our Alzheimer's patients.
Wow, very cool. Bob's talking about hemisync. Sometimes we'll talk about that. But I'm going to throw something out because this is what I do on Phoenix. I take it
Yeah.
slightly off course. Bob, did you know that there was a band that actually used hemisync and nobody really knew about it? And that was the Moody Blues. The Moody Blues, some of the first stereophonic albums that came out, actually incorporated hemisync in them.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, I know. When I found out, I'm like, okay, that explains a lot. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right, back on topic. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so getting back for a second to Dr. Sanderson, she really looks at the totality of the environment for an individual, and she looks at each individual also, and she calls this she has this set of cultural and social issues, but also people's internal and external environment. So she looks at toxins people have been exposed to or are being exposed to, what type of nutrients they're taking, their hormone balance, right? Any infections that might be causing dementia, and also structural issues. It can affect the blood flow to your brain. So you have again, a craniosacral intervention that can help blood flow to your brain, and people can do this for themselves. There are these portals in the back of your skull, and if you were to look at a skull by itself, you would see these tiny holes that look like they've been drilled in the back part of the skull, and it's actually portals where arteries and nerves come out of the brain itself and down into the neck. And in this case, those portals are called the jugular foramen. And they are housing the vagus nerve, and also arteries that supply blood to the brain. And there are people that their whole life have had poor circulation to their brain because of the way that they were born. And if someone came out of the womb head first with their head tipped back, because a child's skull bones are very malleable at that point, they're not fully formed. They have a soft spot on top of their head because the bones have not completely come together. It can pinch that jugular foramen, and it can restrict nerve flow and blood flow to the brain. And nowadays, many parents will bring their newborn child to a craniosacral therapist who will palpate their skull bones, observe, and very gently change the structure of the child's spine and brain to be in perfect alignment, thus to avoid any future complications with restrictions in that area. And I've had the pleasure of watching masterful physicians that are experts in this technique to work, for an hour or 2 hours on a newborn child, helping to align all of their fascia and their back and their skull bones and the like. It's fascinating to see. And people, even as adults, though, can still your skull bones are still manipulable. You can change them around, and if someone's had a head trauma, a car accident, it's very possible that you could end up, if you had a whiplash where your head was sent backwards violently, that you could have pushed the occipital bone up against your temporal bones and constricted the jugular foramen. And so they'll use a technique called V-spread, where the therapist will put one of their fingers on the top part of that foramen and their thumb underneath it, and just push in and push apart. And this is what they call a V-spread, and it's done typically in a craniosacral session as a therapy for creating free flow of innervation and blood flow in the brain. And people can do that for themselves. And those jugular foramen are right in that soft spot at the top of your neck where it starts to become your occipital bone.
I think that's probably why people really like to have that area massaged. I mean, because that's a thing to relieve stress and changes how everyone feels. You can actually put them in the zone. Think about that, everyone. What Bob's talking about, like, well, that's very exotic. No, you've felt this before. You've had a loved one, or you've gone to a therapist, a massage place, and they have done that. And like Bob said, you can do it yourself. I did it the other day because I was feeling a little tight back there, and so I reached back and did the same thing. And so even though this sounds maybe odd, you have experienced this. Okay, please continue.
Yeah. And you could watch, if people want to watch a YouTube video about these techniques, there's videos about craniosacral therapy online. Very important stuff to know, especially for little children, someone who's had a head trauma. Head trauma does cause forms of dementia. And I have a friend who just recently had a pretty significant head trauma where, a crane collapsed over a bridge and landed on his car. And he's having trouble with his memory and focus and concentration as a result of that trauma. And luckily for him, he's aware of these types of therapy and actually lives in the area where the original doctor lived and where the Institute of Craniosacral Therapy is, down in South Florida. And so valuable things to know about. It's not common for people to know and understand things like craniosacral therapy, but in many cases, it's just the exact thing that people need. And this this doctor, Dr. Sanderson, is looking at these external issues regarding toxins and infections and that. But then she also looks at the internal workings of a person's brain and considers it just as important, meaning what type of mindset does the person have? How self-aware are they? Or how much on autopilot are they? What type of self-talk do they have? What's their attitude towards life? What types of feelings are important to them, and their belief structures? And we talked all about collective nocebos the other day, and
Yes.
There is this nocebo around dementia. Oh, so and so is getting old and they're starting to become forgetful. And we all know that that's going to be a downward spiral. So we better start making plans now, right? Well, this is a cultural aspect of this nocebo, but it's also a thing about ageism, where there's just this nocebo around age. And some people buy into these things and some don't. And so, Dr. Sanderson looks at all of these aspects of a person's health. She also looks at the social structure that they may or may not have, their health insurance policy, what state they're living in and county they're living in regard to government regulations, government safety nets, infrastructure, and the like. And and all of these are important things in regard to her intervention for Alzheimer's. Now, there's other things that that can also be done that may or may not be a part of Dr. Sanderson's treatment strategy, but the one we mentioned earlier, that was the study out of Cornell with these circulation mats that showed dramatic improvement in people with dementia when they improved the blood flow using these pulses. And it turns out that our bodies, our cells in our body, have photoreceptors. We evolved in sunlight, and sunlight is a form of light that hits our bodies. It penetrates our bodies, and there are receptors in our cones and rods in our eyes and in our mitochondria all throughout our body that transduce these photons ultimately into energy. And we know now that there are specific waves of light that tend to help more with cognitive issues and dementia. And there's a company called Just Light, JUSTLIGHT. That's their website, justlight.com. And the gentleman that owns that company invented a light that he calls the sunflower, because it's in the shape of a sunflower, and he needed a name for it. And it's in front of the FDA right now to be approved as a treatment for Alzheimer's disease. But you can buy it on his site, Just Light. And there's different modes to it also, Phoenix. So it's not just for treating Alzheimer's. You can use it for inflammation, circulation, that kind of thing. But the circulation mats that we're referring to, it turns out that there are two particular pulses in the electromagnetic spectrum that when those pulses hit your body, it creates an expansion in your capillaries. So the little tiny microscopic capillaries where the oxygen and nutrients leave the bloodstream and go to the cell itself and into the cell, right? They are expanding and contracting continuously. And the reason they're expanding and contracting is threefold, but one of the three is from these pulses of electromagnetism that's hitting our bodies, and they're primarily coming from the core of the earth. So the core of the earth is rotating. It's in its own kind of cylinder housing in the middle of the Earth, and it's spinning. And that spinning motion, coupled with the spinning of the Earth itself, is creating these electromagnetic pulses from the iron core. They penetrate the whole Earth. They come up above the surface. Human beings absorb those pulses, and without them, we wouldn't have circulation.
Well, and that would suck. If we don't have circulation, that would ruin your whole day. I'm telling you right now.
It would ruin your whole day, no doubt. Five minutes later, you would cease to exist. you would not have life force anymore. Mm-hmm. And so those special mats are very, very valuable. Anybody wants to know more about those, give us a call on our 800 number. We'll be happy to tell you more about them. And the other things that really help a lot with that circulation are a couple of nutritional compounds that people can take. One is called arginine. It's an amino acid that also helps to dilate your capillaries by being a precursor to nitric oxide, which when released expands those capillaries. And the other is one called phosphatidylcholine, which is a compound that helps make up the cell wall. So your cell walls are very intricate and important. They allow certain things in and toxins out. And in order to be elastic, which then makes your tissue elastic, including arteries and veins, is dependent in part on phosphatidylcholine, which is made in your liver. You have a genetic code for it, but as you age, you make less. So the good news is you can take it by mouth and increase your phosphatidylcholine and keep your arteries very elastic. That compound is in Boomer Boost for that reason. Right? The other is DHA. DHA is a fatty acid that's in fish and krill, and that is prominent in the cones and rods in your eyes, and it's a transducer of photons, and it converts them into electrons and supplies your brain with electrical power from the photons. And it works in concert with the piezoelectricity from your pineal gland, providing electrical potential at your synapses and in the receptor cells in your brain as well that allow for neurotransmission. And so all these little things are part of the intricate God-created system of the human body. And as research goes on and life goes on, scientists discover all of these things, and some scientists then become inventors that take advantage of the discoveries, similar to Eric Kurtz creating Myotrol. A lot of the research was done by other people that Eric was following and used their research, and he was the one that had the capability to actually produce a product.
Very cool.
But a good part of the research was done by people at research facilities around the world that he followed and compiled and then utilized. And same is true with most other inventions, including that circulation mat and including the Just Light sunflower that was invented.
Very cool. Bob, we are at the top of the hour here. We have already hit a little over an hour. Yep. With that, I mean, a lot of really fantastic information, but the most important fantastic information that people can have is how in the heck do they get in touch with you, phone numbers, other information like that. And before we go into that, I'll tell everyone you can go to patriotintelreport.com. That's patriotintelreport.com. Look on the left-hand side. You'll see a lady in a blue lightning storm. Click on that. It'll take you right to all of this information. But the particulars of that, Bob will tell you. And when Bob's done giving us this info, he's going to give us his closing thoughts and some words of wisdom, because he always has some for us. So please, Bob, proceed.
Yeah, so people want to reach us by phone, you can do that. We answer the phones here Eastern time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It's an 800 number. It's 861-4609. And if you have any questions about what we've talked about today or other issues, feel free to call. If you want to stop by, call ahead so you make sure I'm here. I'll meet with you myself. And we're at 5401 Central Avenue in St. Petersburg, Florida, halfway between the beach and downtown on the north side of Central Avenue. And so when you make your way to our site by going to patriotintelreport.com, right, click on the banner, the lady in the blue lightning, you'll find our site. If you want to take advantage of that sale on Boomer Boost, just click products, individual products, and then click on the Boomer Boost and you'll see the sale. And then just finally, I would say this, Phoenix, with things like Alzheimer's disease, these advancements we're talking about are really important. I mean, there's, at any given time in the United States, there's between 6 and 7 million people alive that have Alzheimer's disease. That's a lot of people, right? But now, with these discoveries about irisin, the creation of myotrol, the creation of these circulation mats, knowing about things like phosphatidylcholine, et cetera, the game has changed significantly. We now have the first ever residential care facility designed for discharging people after their Alzheimer's improves. And the creator of that facility, Dr. Sanderson, has written a book called Reversing Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So things are changing fast, and this is today what we talked about is just some of what's going on and what people can begin to think about doing.
Very cool. Well, I tell you what, a lot of information, Bob, and as always, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And again, everybody, be sure and take advantage of the fact that you can call Boomers Forever Young and ask a question about your health. It doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't commit you to anything, but they are a wealth of health information, and the fact is, and this is how they roll, if they can't help you with something, they will tell you and help you to get help somewhere else, and many times, most of the times, not to their benefit at all. Totally unaffiliated, no kickbacks, no referrals, no nothing. They're just trying to help people, which is an amazing thing, Bob. It's a very rare thing in today's world that there really are companies out there that actually care about people, and you guys do. It's been proven over and over. Bob, thank you so much.
Phoenix, thank you. It was my pleasure. Glad to be talking with you.
Yep. Okay. And as always, Bob, it's my honor. Anyway, till the next Patriot Health Report, everyone, be sure and check out all those numbers, this information. Share this information with people that you know who may need this information. And until the next Patriot Health Report, everyone, remember, it doesn't matter what you have, how many toys you have, how much money you have, where you live. If you do not have your health, you have nothing. And that's a fact. All right, stay positive, stay healthy, everyone. Until next Patriot Health Report, God bless, and Phoenix and Bob out.